Krishna Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Muted.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paraman Supari Praja Kacharya Stotra Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Nama Acharya Sridhar Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kunnagiri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Rangamaya Ki Jai Jamanamai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol. Thank you, Maharaj Jai. Thank you, Mahesh Pandit Prabhu. And welcome everyone to Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. Today is Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023. It's also the disappearance day of His Grace Sriman Jayananda Prabhu. Jayananda Prabhu ki jai. We're reading in the third canto, 16th chapter, titled The Two Doorkeepers of Vaikuntha, Jai and Vijay, Cursed by the Sages. We start tonight again with text number 33. As always, we're eager to hear everyone's comments and questions, so please use the raise hand feature or simply unmute yourself and speak when Maharaj asks for questions, or you can type your comments into the chat box. Please just remember not to send any chat messages. If Maharaj is reading something there, it makes it difficult to read when somebody is adding to the chat box while he's reading. Maharaj, we're so glad you could join us. I heard you're on a travel day today. Where are you now?
Travel day was yesterday. I'm in Singhachalam near Passau in Germany, which is a place of Lord Nrsingadev.
Jai, Hare Krishna.
And there's about, I don't know, not less than 500 or 700 devotees here. So
wow.
Quite the gathering. And we should discuss before we end our session whether we should have class tomorrow, which will be Lord Nrsingadev's appearance date for you, and will be the night of Lord Nrsingadev's appearance date for me. You should remind me, we can take a poll of whether to meet tomorrow or not. Right? Right. Okay. And 33. Om Namo Bhagavate
Maharaj, I think you're frozen right now. Maybe it might be better if Maharaj signed out and signed in again. He needs a different network. Oh, he's disconnected. Okay, I'm not seeing him. Okay, Maharaj lost his connection, so we'll just wait and see if he can get it back again. Okay. Singhachalan does not have good reception generally. Maybe should we just read the verse and while we're waiting?
Sure.
Okay. I can read it, or if somebody else wants to, they can jump in right now. Okay, then I'll jump in. Tau tu girvana rishabho dushtara dari lokata ata shriyo brahma shapad abhutam vigatasmayo. But those two gatekeepers, the best of the demigods, their beauty and luster diminished by the curse of the Brahmanas, became morose and fell from Vaikuntha, the abode of the Supreme Lord. And I didn't have my database open, so I don't know if there's a purport. There is no purport. Oh wait, that's 34. Hold on. Would someone else like to read text 34?
Maharaj is here.
He's here, Jai. Okay, he can read 33 again if he likes.
The internet connection here is not the greatest, and so it has dumped me. And but we're back, so let's see what we can do. But those two gatekeepers, the best of the demigods, their beauty and luster, diminished by the curse of the Brahmins, became morose and fell from Vaikuntha, the abode of the Supreme Lord. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Trayam Rupakada Mayam Dadati Shapadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamalang Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Chagrajatam Jagana Raganatan Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Rijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Shahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha E Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye.
Recording in progress.
Vanshako Vasindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So now the two gatekeepers, Jai and Vijay, have fallen. Are falling from Vaikuntha. And Vigata Smayo means they became morose. Chakravarti Thakur comments, bereft of bliss. Hari Lokata. They fell from Hari Loka, the abode of the personality of Godhead. Tada Vikunta Dishanat Tayor Nipatamani Yoho Ha Karo Mahana Seat Vimana Grieshu Putrakaha. Then as Jai and Vijay fell from the Lord's abode, a great roar of disappointment arose from all the demigods who were sitting on their airplanes. Ha, Kuru, ha, they, Kuru, making a great sound of disappointment. Bhave tav eva yadhuna prapta parshada pravarohadehe Diter Jatara Nirvishtam Kashyapam Teja Ulbanam. Lord Brahma continued, these two principal doorkeepers of the personality of Godhead have now entered the womb of Diti, the powerful semen of Kashyapa Muni, having covered them. Purport. Here is clear proof of how a living entity coming originally from Vaikuntha Loka is encaged in material elements. So here we have, again, contradictory statements. We've read in previous verses that we've had clear proof that the living entity can never fall from Vaikuntha. And here we have clear proof that he does. This is something we find from time to time in the purports. And it may be due to looking at things from different angles of vision, or hearing through Srila Prabhupada from different acharyas. The result is that whichever side of the argument one wishes to take, or whichever way one chooses to see it, one can find support in the purports for one's point of view. The living entity takes shelter within the semen of a father, which is injected within the womb of a mother. And with the help of the mother's emulsified ovum, the living entity grows a particular type of a body. In this connection, it is to be remembered that the mind of Kashyap Muni was not in order when he conceived the two sons, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Therefore, the semen he discharged was simultaneously extremely powerful and mixed with the quality of anger. It is to be concluded that while conceiving a child, one's mind must be very sober and devotional. For this purpose, the Garbhadhan Samskara is recommended in the Vedic scriptures. If the mind of the father is not sober, the semen discharged will not be very good. Thus, the living entity wrapped in the matter produced from the father and mother will be demoniac, like Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. The conditions of conception are to be very carefully studied. This is a very great science. So here, Srila Prabhupada's emphasis, as he gives many times, is that the consciousness of the parents at the time of conception is crucial to the nature of the child conceived. We know just from ordinary reports that sometimes these days the mother is a drug addict, and the child is born with a narcotics dependency because the mother has that mentality. The mentality of the parents will have an effect on the conception of the child. Therefore, the Garbhadan Samskara was performed, and Srila Prabhupada comments in various places that the sorry, my computer's in an awkward place, so my hand is hitting an awkward place. Okay. Better straight. Krishna. Okay, now we're good. So the Garbhadan Samskara was performed so that the consciousness of the child would be ideal. Conception was not a secret thing. The parents would openly say that now we intend to have a child, and they would seek blessings, and the rituals would be performed for sanctification of consciousness. This Garbhadan Samskar Srila Prabhupada writes about. I don't know if I may have cited this before, but I might as well cite it again. There's a letter that my godbrother, late godbrother Madhusudan Prabhu, wrote to Srila Prabhupada. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and this is May 19th, 1977, wrote back, I discussed the contents of your letter with His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada stated that our grihastas should simply chant 50 rounds before conceiving a child. Prabhupada said, we do not want all these rituals. Chanting Hare Krishna is our only business. According to the Manu Samhita, you are all mlechas and yavanas. You cannot touch the Manu Samhita, what to speak of translating it. So if you try to follow the Manu Samhita, then you become a mlecha and yavana, and your career is finished. I hope this makes the matter clear. So this was Srila Prabhupada's response to Garbhadan Samskar. Should we perform the Garbhadan Samskar? Prabhupada replied that the parents should chant 50 rounds of the Mahamantra for purification of consciousness. Hare Krishna. So here we see that the unfavorable consciousness of the parents, Diti was lusty and Kashyap was angry, and the whole background for conception was unfavorable. And so the children were Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. It's also important what the consciousness is of the parents, especially the mother during the time of pregnancy. We know that Sukadeva Goswami became liberated by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam or became attracted to Krishna by hearing about Krishna from within the womb. And there are many similar cases where even while in the womb of the mother, the child was influenced by transcendental surroundings. In the tangentially, but not exactly tangentially, in the reincarnation research of Dr. Ian Stevenson, he was seeking to discredit or rule out a possible explanation for cases in which a child had physical features that resembled those of a deceased person whose life the child apparently would remember. These were, like birthmarks that mimicked bullet wounds suffered by the previous person, or other such symptoms. And one possible suggestion was that these were due to some impression within the mind of the mother. The mother might be remembering the previous person, and so in some way or other, her impression would be impressed, as it were, on the body of the child in embryo. Apparently, this had been a sort of common belief in the 19th century. It had been reported in the literature and medical literature and so on, but it, of course, had been set aside as we advanced in medical knowledge. We used to think, but now we know. But Stevenson's research suggested that this idea could not be so easily set aside, and he cited quite a few cases in which there was an apparent connection between impressions that the mother had in mind and rare birth defects that a child would be born with. So consciousness plays a role everywhere. The reductionists would like to make everything a result of simple material interactions, but there's evidence that consciousness plays a role at the time of conception, at the time of pregnancy, and of course, once the child is born and growing up. And so the parents have to be Krishna conscious before conception, during conception, after conception, in order to have a good child. After birth, yes, also. Saraswati says, I recall it was stated that sons are born if the father is more attached or attracted to his wife, but daughters if the wife is more attracted or desirous of wanting a child. So here Diti was more lusty and attached to wanting a child, so should have had girls. Yeah, this is there. This reference is there. I don't have an explanation. Apparently, it has to do with the power of the semen of the father. And in this case, we read that Kashyap's seed was powerful. Anyone else have anything else on that or anything else so far? Okay, we shall continue. Let's just click something. And also, by the way, this is another reason why sex should be intentional. When children are just a byproduct of sex engaged in only for enjoyment, and the pregnancy is unintentional, then you get that mentality transferred to the child, that the child's born with the influenced by this enjoying mentality of the parents. And of course, the enjoying mentality is the original disease of the conditioned soul. So therefore, according to the Acharyas, Srila Prabhupada, Baladev Vijayabhushan, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and others, that's according to religious principles, sex should be accepted only for having a Krishna conscious child. Yes, Tulsi Priya.
Maharaj, thank you, Hare Krishna. I was wondering, when you're talking about the mentality of the mother and the father, I was just thinking about, like in the pro-life movement, you'll hear stories about children who were born as the result of rape. And so you have a very bad consciousness going on at that time. You've got, a predatory, vicious, angry father and a extremely fearful mother. And so often these children, grow up to become, if not saintly, they're very pious, because of their involvement in the pro-life movement, So I'm just thinking that maybe you have this sort of starting material with how the child is conceived. But if somebody is that, religious or spiritually evolved, that they wouldn't abort a child that was the product of rape, it seems like that has more of an impact. And I'm not saying every child who's the product of rape is like this, but it seems like that the mother's piety seems to, once the child is born, seems to go a long way to not making that child, an unfortunate creature of circumstance. Do you think that's true?
Everything in the material world is a sort of, what should we say, a mixture of good fortune and bad fortune. It's our bad fortune, the story of the man who fell from a plane, but fortunately there was a haystack, but unfortunately there was this, and that, goes on and on. So unfortunately there was rape, fortunately the mother was pious, unfortunately this, fortunately that. So these things go on. Any birth in this material world will never be completely fortunate. It will always have some element of misfortune. Practically speaking, we have our exceptional cases of pure devotees born in exceptional circumstances. But as a rule, there's always good fortune and misfortune mixed. So, yeah.
So, but it means it doesn't necessarily have to define you if you're conceived in improper circumstances.
Yeah, in material, everything can be overcome, especially by the grace of the Lord, or by the power of Krishna consciousness. It's possible.
Thank you.
And therefore, there's always misfortune. Therefore, during pregnancy, at every stage, there are some scars or things to do to try to ensure the best future for the child. Garbhadhan samskar was the first, and then there are other samskars performed at different stages, or for that matter, throughout life, so that the life can be purified, and one gets the best opportunity to become Krishna conscious. One Muslim gentleman, he was a cleric, one Muslim cleric told me that according to his tradition, it's said that the child from the breast of the mother should hear the name of Bismillah, should hear the name of God from that point from the breast of the mother, you should hear the name of Bismillah. So that importance, and we see, of course, that Yashoda was protecting Krishna from Rakshasis and so on by chanting holy names of God. So as far as, and here we see Prabhupada, the parents should chant 50 rounds. During pregnancy, the mother, as far as possible, should hear transcendental sound. While growing up, the child should be seeing the example of Krishna consciousness, hearing and be engaged in devotional service. So all of these things are there to try to give the child the best opportunity for Krishna consciousness. Shukayanti says, nowadays, deity worship and other practices in our movement, such as observing Ekadasi, is much more elaborate than what was taught by Srila Prabhupada. You read a comment by Srila Prabhupada about us not being qualified to read certain Samhitas. Is it wrong that all these new features have been introduced? I don't want to say right or wrong, but what I will say is that, yes, as you've mentioned, in Srila Prabhupada's these times, these things were very simple. These things were very simple. And over time, some devotees introduced and other devotees became attracted to various more elaborate features. So I don't want to say right or wrong, but certainly Srila Prabhupada's emphasis always was on the chanting of the holy name, on chanting and hearing. For Ekadasi, he didn't put much, he never said anything about all these stories that we hear about various things that, various benefits you get by observing this Ekadasi or that Ekadasi. Prabhupada said these were for the, basically for the karmis, to attract them to follow Ekadasi. But for us, he wrote in one letter, the real Ekadasi means staying up all night, chanting the glories of the Lord. So that's the emphasis on Ekadasi. It's not on so many rituals. For Srila Prabhupada, it was on chanting and hearing and remembering Krishna. That was the point. In some cultures also, in Bengal, they tend to be more strict about not only no grains and beans, but no mustard seeds, and there's a list of various things one should avoid. I wouldn't say that this is wrong. It's just that the most important thing is the hearing and chanting of the name and glories of Krishna. As far as the deity worship, yes, the deity worship also was simpler. It's interesting, we have two tendencies in ISKCON. One is toward or it could be seen this way, that we have two tendencies. One is toward a greater elaboration of ritual, and the other is toward a greater emphasis on spontaneous devotion and sort of more elevated aspirations. And it's interesting to note that Srila Prabhupada's deity worship was actually very simple. And the deity worship that he gave us was actually very simple. So sometimes we find the same people who are, well, I don't want to say that, but when we look at it, we say, well, it was just sort of primitive idea of what we were supposed to do. Didn't really take into account the other rituals because we weren't ready for them. And on the other side, you look at it and you could say Prabhupada's deity worship was very exalted because it really left aside, didn't pay attention to so many rituals. It paid attention to devotion to the Lord. So I won't say anything about what's right or wrong, but we can see that Srila Prabhupada's emphasis was consistently on devotion and on hearing and chanting. Even we saw that and Prabhupada remarked on it, during the installation of Krishna Balaram in Vrindavan. He had Brahmins hired to perform all the expected rituals, but he also had a kirtan party of his own devotees chanting the holy name. And he said that he considered the kirtan the real ceremony for installation. All right. There was quite a number of comments in the purports. Rabin says, Anga gave birth to Vena, and Hiranyakashipu gave birth to Prahlad. So yes, we sometimes find that in a family of demons, a devotee will be born. In a family of devotees, a demon will be born. Of course, Anga was a great devotee, but as Prabhupada said, his wife wasn't very good. She was the daughter of death personified. So, yeah, but we do find that this happens sometimes in a family of demons or a family of devotees. The opposite kind of offspring will be found. Sankarshan says, it isn't necessarily true that whoever was more lusty, the offspring will be of the sex of the one who was most lusty. From the 428.3 purport, a male child will be born if the husband is sexually stronger than the wife, but if the female is stronger, a female child will be born. Okay, I won't comment further about that, but yes, that statement is there. And thank you for that, Sankarshan. Ananta Shesh says there's a trend in our movement to be more ritualistic, which in my understanding goes against Prabhupada's mood. Yeah, it's we don't want to, at least I don't want to pass judgment on these matters. We saw that after some devotees came back from preaching in South India, they introduced in Mayapur a sort of more elaborate paraphernalia for yagyas and for initiation ceremonies even. And Prabhupada accepted these things. There's paraphernalia that they brought from South India, and Prabhupada, and they would perform the rituals for the ceremony. Prabhupada would give the name and the beads. Prabhupada accepted it. So I don't have but he himself did the simplest of ceremonies when he was doing it himself. So I won't say it's contrary to Prabhupada's mood, but certainly one could make the case that Prabhupada did everything in a simple fashion. And then one can argue about, well, was that because he was just getting started, or he really would have wanted to have the more ritualistic approach? Or is it that he this was his approach to keep it simple? I have my own thoughts on the matter, but I'll leave it. Those who are less inclined toward rituals certainly can find support in Srila Prabhupada's example and teachings, and those who want more rituals can find support. We'll read Sankarshan's post and then come to Tulsi Priya. This is more from that purport from fourth canto. I think fourth canto. At the fag end of life, when the invalidity of old age attacks a man, his body becomes useless for all purposes. Therefore, Vedic training dictates that when a man is in his boyhood, he should be trained in the process of brahmacharya. That is, he should be completely engaged in the service of the Lord and should not in any way associate with women. When the boy becomes a young man, he marries between the ages of 20 and 25. When he's married at the right age, he can immediately beget strong, healthy sons. Now, female descendants are increasing because young men are very weak sexually. A male child will be born if the husband is sexually stronger than the wife, but if the female is stronger, a female child will be born. Thus, it is essential to practice the system of brahmacharya if one wishes to beget a male child when one is married. On many grounds, Srila Prabhupada tells us that it's best for the children, the boys, young boys, to be trained as brahmacharis. Either then they can then stay as brahmacharis for their whole life, or when they marry, they'll have a more successful married life, and then also be more fit to retire from family life in the mature stage. All right, Tulsi Priya.
Maharaj, two things occurred to me, or two separate points. We'll see if I can get them both out quickly. One is that this idea of men being weaker sexually, I think nowadays it's extremely becoming more prominent, this whole idea of gender ideology and confusion of gender and gender dysphoria. And I wonder to myself if, based on hearing this, if it's because of young men and women being so addicted to pornography. A lot of people say that men who consume a lot of pornography are prone, not just being born with gender confusion, but they can cultivate it or develop it in their adult years because they're so focused on women in this very degraded way that they start to identify it with them. And now we see more and more young people, developing in those in that direction. So I was just wondering, I don't know if you've thought about this at all, but it's something that I have an interest in, and it just occurred to me now that maybe that's what's accounting for the gender confusion, is because people are ironically weakening themselves by overindulgence in sex, which Prabhupada does refer to. He says overindulgence leads to impotence. And then my other question is that when we were talking about the ritualism, I was thinking about the early Christian church. Started off very, very simple. And of course, Vaishnavism isn't new, but in the West, it might as well be new. And we started off very simple. And as the Christian church gradually, in the Catholic church anyways, became more elaborate and ostentatious and things like that, we've also become more elaborate in our worship and in our, our venues and everything like that. So I was wondering if you think that there's any correlation there.
Two questions unrelated to one another.
Yes.
First concerning pornography, and the second concerning ritual. As far as pornography, pornography of course means masturbation. The two go together, and that's according to Ayurveda, at least. This leads to sexual weakness. So certainly that will have a role on messing things up. As far as what the result will be, that's, I wouldn't venture to say, not being the Ayurvedic expert, but certainly it's not auspicious for wasting semen, and it is bad both for the man who becomes weaker. The Ayurveda says semen is associated with ojas. Ojas is the basic principle for the development of everything physiologically, and determination and so many other things. So the modern whack-off culture is not favorable for human progress, no matter how you look at it. And the internet has only advanced that weakness exponentially, I guess you'd say. As far as the confusion, gender dysphoria, and the whole world has just gone, or large portions of the world has gone mad, and people are confused about what they are, what constitutes what, and they're that in that atmosphere, the present atmosphere invites confusion. I saw even in an ISKCON-sponsored school over the past year, a sticker in the school saying, celebrating LGBT History Month, with little balloons and things, celebrating LGBT History Month. And this was even in one of our schools, and what to speak of their schools, where this sort of confusion is invited. There's really no difference between, whether you're straight or gay or this or that, or whether you want to cross the line and be something else by the grace of surgery. It's all the same. These are just lifestyle choices. So in that sort of environment, that young person would be confused is not surprising. As far as rituals, now remind me your point again about the rituals.
Well, that, like, to use an example, in the early Christian
Just
church,
remind me very briefly, because
Yeah.
our time is brief.
in the early Christian church, it was very simple, and it
Oh, yeah.
gradually
Okay,
became
got it.
elaborate.
There's a certain elaboration of ritual which is to be expected, and then there's a sort of tension between ritual and sincerity, and that's always there. Even if your rituals are the simplest, there's a tension between following the rituals and having the right spirit. We have that in our chanting. There's 16 rounds, but there's a tension between the duty to finish one's rounds, and on the other side, the importance of really being absorbed in chanting the holy name of the Lord. So on the one side, we have the framework, 16 rounds and so on. And on the other side, we have the essence of the thing, to be absorbed in the holy name. Then it doesn't matter how many rounds you chant, or the other way, it doesn't matter how many rounds you chant if you're not absorbed. It matters. We should meet our vow, but the essence is our sincerity, our concentration, and so on. In the deity worship, there are various rituals to be performed, and they may be simple rituals or they may be elaborate rituals, but the essence is one's devotion to the Lord. So there's a natural tendency that may develop between the ritual side and the devotional side, or there may be a sense that by increasing the rituals, we increase the devotion. If we want to express our love for Krishna, then we want to do more for him. And so this ritual or that ritual represents a greater commitment to serving the Lord with more paraphernalia or more observances, or following more strictly. It's taken that the rituals mean we're adhering more strictly to the tradition. And so again, that represents devotion to the Lord. And then there are others on the other side who'll say devotion represents devotion. We just do the same rituals with more love and devotion. So again, I wouldn't say that this side or that side is right or wrong, but there's always sort of a tension between the tendency to express devotion through ritual, and the tendency on the other side to express devotion with less ritual. And I wouldn't pass judgment on it, at least not for those who are not. I won't pass judgment on it here. Thank you. Murari Gupta says, my observation in Mayapur is that, and Rupa Goswami therefore speaks of niyamagraha, too much following of the rules and regulations and not enough following of the rules and regulations. So there too, he indicates a sort of tension between the two tendencies. Murari Gupta says, my observation in Mayapur is that the introduction of more elaborate rituals and deity worship is the result of Jananivas Prabhu's desires to please the deities and give opportunity for more devotee participation in service to the deities. That's certainly more devotee participation is something that sometimes gets lost in our deity worship. In the early days, perhaps because there were fewer rituals, there was a greater opportunity for more devotees and even non-devotees to participate, either because things were simpler or because that's where the emphasis was. On the other hand, in other ways, when we elaborate things, we also give people an opportunity to participate. You're closer on the ground and you know more what Jananivas Prabhu has been doing. Certainly he's been done a great service by standardizing what devotees do. Without some standard, we get lost, and we either just sort of do things haphazardly without knowing what the standard way to do them is, or we can get so over involved in ritual and that we forget the essence. So I think that from what I've seen, and you're closer than I am, but that he's sought to instruct the devotees so that they would know the rituals and have an appropriate balance there, or they would have the appropriate ingredients, the rituals and the focus on devotion to the Lord, which is the purpose of the rituals. All right, we're at 2:00. We have a question to be answered. And it's not a long question on our program for tomorrow. Tomorrow here is Nrsimha Chaturdashi. Of course, it's today because we're already at 2:00 here. But anyway, the 5th is, or rather the 4th here, and I suppose there is Nrsimha Chaturdashi. So we can either carry on with our Chaitanya Charitamrita class, or we could skip the day and on the grounds that devotees, I and others, may have a lot of involvement in regular Nrsimha Chaturdasi programs. Especially here, there's a lot going on, and there's a large number of devotees. And I would think that elsewhere there may be a lot going on. Of course, Kendra and Tulsi Priya there have a quiet corner there. But I wanted to get a sense from you of whether we should skip on our Thursday night class or carry on. If you just give a quick something in the chat box or speak up, or Nrsimha Chaturdasi here is 4 p.m. Ananta Shesh says skip. Of course, the Chaturdasi lasts all day. Murari, skip. Surabhi, skip. Saraswati, skip. Sankarshan, class.
Arash,
Yes.
I'm willing to be here, and we don't have to do CC, but we could, if they want to have a Sangha, and we could read the pastime of Lord Nrsimhadev.
That's a possibility. Thank you for stopping the recording. There can be a get together, and those who want to skip can skip, and those who get together. Damodar Priya says that's a great idea. Okay, we have any more?
Yeah, skip Maharaj tomorrow.
Skip. Mahesh Pandit says skip. Dana likes that Tulsi Priya's idea. iPhone says skip. Okay, that's a fairly good number. I think what we could say is that tomorrow there'll be a program. Kendra and Tulsi Priya will be eminently available. They don't have a temple schedule to get involved in, and other devotees, there are others who like that idea, so sounds like there'll be some company. I may or may not come, probably may not, because although at 1 a.m. everything's over, I have to take rest during the day to make it at 1 a.m, and that would mean missing a lot of involvement with the devotees and so on. So I'll skip, but those who are inclined, by all means, get together tomorrow. And Surabhi wishes a happy Nrsimha Chaturdasi to me, and I think to everyone. So there you are. And we can stop here. Shall we have a little kirtan? It's gotten a little late, but let's have a couple minutes of kirtan. If Mahesh Pandit Prabhu, are you willing to close out?
Yes. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pariprajaka Stotra Satashi Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Gangamai Ki Jai Jamanamai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Bo. And Nrsingadev Bhagavan Ki Jai.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mahesh Pandit Prabhu. Thank you, Haridas. Thank you, Meena. And thank you to all.
Thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. Please share those class links with your friends, and I guess we'll see you all tomorrow for our own little Nrsingadev Parents' Day program with perhaps with Jayadvaita Maharaj, but regardless without. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj Ki Jai.
Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Tulsi Priya. Mahesh Pandit Prabhu.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madhupati Prabhu.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. And I'm coming to New Jersey the 17th. I sent you a memo. I don't know if you received it.
Yeah, this much.
Okay.
I'll get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jaya.
Say 10 p.m.